we're bridge builders. I believe in that. We're bridging the beginning of the semester to the end of the semester. And for so many of the kids that we hang out with, I mean, that leads pretty close to that threshold of adulthood. Graduation isn't automatic. We've talked about initiation and things like that, but there is that threshold of your choices now mean a little bit more than they ever have before. And for some of our kids, they really are going to be on their own. And so what we're talking about is a whole entire process of learning that, man, they can catch a glimpse in our experience that they could take for them, take something with them to the very near future. And that's what I desire to be a part of.
Man, that's downright mindful.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
Did we just become best friends? Yep.
We don't make mistakes. We have happy accidents.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
I don't need backups. I'm going to Harvard.
Remember these words. If it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
Do or do not. There is no try.
I still have a dream.
Welcome to Downright Mindful, a meeting place where we explore meaning, seek connections, and examine the relationships between people, events, and the ideas that shape our world. Hosted by me, Matt Paris, my friend and colleague Paul Sawswell. Each episode will dive into thoughtful conversations that spark reflection and curiosity. Thanks for joining us. Now let's get right down to it. I'll tell you what really is driving what we've been talking about is, I don't know if I've ever shared this with you, but this started in my first year of teaching. So I've experimented with it at least half of the time. I won't say I do this every spring semester, but at least half of them, maybe more. The first year I was teaching, there was all these drawers in my room that are locked and cabinets that are, no students allowed, because there's certain things in there that, even though they're harmless, could be misunderstood if they got into the hands of an unsupervised kid. For instance, a training gun. I still have, ejection molded rubber pistols in my room that we can use in certain training scenarios. But you put that in the hand of an unsupervised high schooler, that could turn south real fast and be misunderstood, and we wouldn't be able to have those any longer. So I said all that to say there's things in my room that are off limits unless closely supervised. But when I finish a semester with level 3 kids who've spent a lot of time with me, I always reserve a day at the end to where I can say, anything in here, you want to spend more time with it, you want me to sit and show you more deeply how to use this or what I would do with this in the field, just tell me, we'll do it. I'll bounce around the room and we can have fingerprinting over here, and I can be teaching you, defensive tactics with weapons over here, whatever you want to do. We will, quote fingers, play with whatever you want to play with. And that first time I did it, all of my kids just looked around at each other, and one of them spoke up and was like, will you just tell us a story? And I was like, yeah. Like what kind of story you want to hear? I don't know. Just tell us about a call you went on or something when you were the police. So that hit me pretty loud in my first semester as a teacher. So every now and then I'll do that again with those level 3 students who've spent most of their high school at least bumping into me half of the year. And it's always the same. None of them ever say, hey, let's break out that fingerprint powder some more, or let me get on this microscope over here. They always say, hey, will you tell us about that time you punched a woman? Because that's another one I do when a kid's early in my class, and oftentimes, a month, 2 months in, if they've been grinding on certain things, and it can feel really academic for a CTE class at times, I'll say, hey, Anybody want to hear about the time Mr. Paris punched a woman? And always there'll be some dude go, yes, I do right now. I want to hear that right now. And I'll tell them this story about.
Are you going to tell us this story right now?
I mean, I'll tell you the quick version.
Okay.
I backed up a patrol partner of mine one time that had gone to a welfare check. Somebody called in the middle of the night and, hey, we got somebody that's having trouble breathing. But in the background, the dispatcher could hear what sounds like a party going on. So just to be safe, they send a patrol car out with the ambulance. And the patrol car gets there first, and he's way out in the county. And somehow he ends up literally in a fight in the driveway. Like some drunk guy gets all over him, and he's trying to deal with this drunk guy. And as I'm responding, I pull in the driveway and I see this guy struggling for this guy's hands. And I see a woman coming from the house running toward them. So I get out and I run over real quick. And before I can get to him, she jumps on his back like Spider Woman. And I'm like, oh my word. So I grab her and I get her off of him, and she's fighting me like she's Ronda Rousey. I mean, she's going at me. And I'm using a wrist lock and some certain things that are typically very effective on people, pain compliance type stuff. But I've got this lady in a wrist lock to where anybody would be on the ground right now. But she is not going to the ground. And her arm is bent to the point I'm going to break her arm. I'm going to break it. And I was like,
is the ambulance there yet?
No, well, we're going to tell them when it's okay to come. That's the way this works.
Okay,
Hey, we all go and just check, make sure it's safe, and tell us when it is. And they'll park at a driveway down the street or something. It happens all the time. It was not okay at this point. These people are falling down drunk, and this lady is not responding to this pain compliance to the point I'm surprised it hasn't already broken her arm. And just this random thought in the middle of the night out in South Bradley County hits me that like man, I'm going to break her arm over this drunk stupor. She's going to sober up and feel like an idiot in the morning. And aside from fighting with the police, she probably hadn't even committed a crime beyond that. But her face is right there. And instead of breaking her arm, I just let go of her hand and popped her right in the jaw. She Now, I will go on to say, in my mind this entire time is I've got to get control of her because my buddy's over here getting fought by a grown man. Okay. Like that's my concern. She hits the pavement. I handcuff her in 2 seconds and I go over to him. And when I get to him, it's, two guys on one is a lot different. We don't have to hurt that guy. We get his hands, we handcuff him. That's the end of it. But, that's always the bait is, hey guys, good Monday morning to you. Hope you had a good weekend. Anybody want to hear about the time I punched a woman in the face?
So how early do you tell that story now in the semester?
Somewhere within the first month.
Okay.
Yeah. But, there's certain housekeeping items that I do CTE wise that meet certain criteria put forward by the state. And then there's the whole, the first
punching people in the face isn't like a state standard.
No,
they don't need to know.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
And then, the first day or two, I'm doing typical teachers, expectations, relationships, all those kind of things. But when we start creeping toward the end of that and getting to the place where we're about to start diving into some criminal justice. So it could be within the first week, just depends. Because
I say that's the first story. Hey, I'm Mr. Paris on your schedule, but I need you to know some things.
Yeah.
I've lived some different lives.
Well,
Let me tell you a story.
There have been times where I've really dropped the ball in the hustle and bustle of things, and I'll get like a month and a half in, and somebody will say, "Were you the police?" And I'm like, all right, guys, everything we've talked about, just forget it. Let's start over. And I'll kind of tell them where I came from and what
it is a difference maker. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a big time.
They want to know who's talking to them.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I've said that to sort of get you to a place. I don't want to sneak anything up. I've kind of watched our style over the last couple weeks, and I'm going to give you all the information and then let's just talk about it. Okay. Instead of me hiding this in elements, because I could break this up into elements and, sort of play a cat and mouse game with you. I don't want to do that. I came across a thing, and it's loosely credited to Walt Disney. It's the 3 E's. You know what I'm talking about?
Nope.
So let's see. It is entertain, educate, and enlighten. This is loosely credited to Walt Disney. Tom Hanks has been quoted referencing this as his job as an actor or a storyteller. And I recently heard it said by Taylor Sheridan, who does a lot of writing and producing of, television and movies. Now, it's most often associated with the entertainment business, but it's also kind of creeps into education.
Say those 3 words again.
Entertain, educate, and enlighten. So first, I'll ask you, is that attractive to you with your teacher hat on right now? Is that?
Inspire, instruct, empower. I've carried those 3 words with me for a long time.
Inspire, instruct,
empower. Yep.
Okay.
So entertain, inspire. You could connect those, right?
Mm-hmm.
You said educate, I said instruct. They're straight up synonyms. You said enlighten, I said empower. For me, that last bit is like my objective is to turn myself into a collaborator.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to set myself up as someone worthy to work alongside. If I keep myself at a distance as the teacher and authority figure, like that's not collaboration. That's me as I am the source,
Mm-hmm.
getting as much as you can for me. And then like peace. Most of that's traditional public school education. Even at the higher levels, we walk in, there's an expert, we get what the expert says, we do what the expert says. Hopefully it goes well for us in the sense of good grade and then peace.
Mm-hmm.
But when we reflect upon those who have made the greatest impact on us, somewhere along the way, we were side by side rather than sit and get.
Mm-hmm.
So inspire. Hey, I want to cast a vision for you. Let's see if you have eyes to see and ears to hear. And then I want to instruct you because I do know some stuff. I know some stuff that you don't know, but I know this. In the end, you know stuff that I don't know. I hang out with 16 and 17-year-olds. They have some life experience.
That's right. Yeah.
I give them a lot of credit. And so at some point, I want to be able to learn something. And that's part selfishness. It's part nerd stuff. It's just part of what I'm getting at is that third part is empower. Like I want them to take whatever I'm giving them with them for the rest of their lives. Okay. But hey, how about now? Let us share an experience right now that we can make some memories. And so when I do see you, we can reminisce and we can recall and we can smile. And maybe it was even hard. Maybe that hard was good because most of the time those two things go together really, really well. But you have to create some sort of tension in the room. And empowerment means, hey, it's you, go. Yoda, Luke, Swamp. Okay, but now it's time to the lightsaber's in your hand. Go do something. I got your back.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you get to there? I'm 23 years into this. And so that's what ceiling tiles are and painting on my walls, but not everybody's an artist. So where do we go from there? We'll construct something or, create something that you can present but that's the discovery for me. Inspire, instruct, and then for me to discover how I can step into their space to help them pursue something they're interested in with not glamorous, my state standards. So,
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm tracking with your 3 E's.
I like it. What caught me about it is, teaching in 2024, 2025 now, in a class where, because I'm kind of different in that regard, maybe. And if I'm not so different, then stop me and say, bro, you're not that different. But you can go through high school in Tennessee and never take a criminal justice class. You can graduate and you can be successful. I'm an optional class. Does that make sense to you?
Sure. And you have to take my class. You can't graduate without my class. So I get a lot of kids that, I mean, even though they have to be there, they don't want to be there.
Yeah, that's right. But I have some of those too. I have some, I'm not naive enough to not believe that there's a handful of kids in my class every semester that I seem like the best choice. They don't want to be in any of these classes. And that I still have those kids. But I think once we're in the classroom, if we're trying to be quality at all, then once they're there, I won't say we're the same, but we are similar. And by we, I mean teachers in general, whether it's English or mathematics or whatever it is. But the entertainment struck me first, because there's been times when I've thought in my mind, man, my job is not to entertain you. I've never said those words out loud. And I don't even fully believe it, because as a teacher who is trying to attract students, because you'd be amazed at high school kids nowadays. There's kids that, let's use my class for an example. If a kid wanted to either be a police officer or go to law school or get into some sort of psychology in the criminal justice field, they would typically, naturally, you'd think they'd want to take criminal justice classes in high school. But if that kid hears that your class is just a bucket of suck, they don't have to. They can go take.
No high school student has used that phrase to describe a class, though.
No?
No.
Is that
a bucket of suck? Who has ever said those words?
Oh, sorry. Don't you act so disappointed.
I'm trying to figure out what a bucket of suck is.
It's just
that's
sucks.
really bad,
if
man.
They find out,
gosh,
man,
I don't want to take that class.
That guy's class sucks.
All right, I'm back on board.
They'll go take a business class with a cool teacher like Monty Frazier or some, shout out Monty Frazier, and they'll pursue what they want to do once they get to college.
Yeah. So where are you going with it? So are we entertainers?
Well, I won't ask that question, because I think the answer is, bottom line, the answer is no, I think. But because I like the question. I think we should entertain it. I think in order to share any information with me at 40 years old, I'm going to need you to entertain me a little bit.
Well, define the word then.
Entertainment?
Yeah.
I need you to intrigue. I need you to catch my attention. And that could be as shallow or as deep as you want it to be. Maybe.
Well, a best practice in teaching is a hook. Is that entertainment?
I guess you would include it in there, wouldn't you?
I mean, do you have some days because it's not if we entertain every day, then the entertainment becomes predictable and you're no longer intrigued, right?
That's right.
But I mean, like when you look at your semester, I'll give one, you give one, I'll give another, you give. Let's do this twice just for fun.
Okay.
Like I use juggling in my class, so I will come in and I will juggle. Okay, that doesn't catch too many people's attention. Yeah. Those who can, they're like, "Oh, that's cool," and those who can't, they may say that's cool, but like they're just staring at me.
Yeah.
And then I grab my bucket and we go either to the stage in cold weather or we go outside to the front circle and we practice for 20 minutes.
Uh-huh.
Now it's a little intriguing because now you're figuring out how coordinated you are or how uncoordinated you are. And I use all of that for the power of repetition and learning. Mm-hmm. And that mistakes are part of the process and that mistakes are inevitable. And failure is not continuing to try. And success is for however long it takes to figure it out. Okay. So that for me, but that's pretty entertaining because I do juggle and I tell the story of my buddy Ian who taught me how, and my brother-in-law Ben's right next to me and we spend the whole night and we get it and we're like celebrating because once you get juggling, can you juggle?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like once you get it, it's like riding a bike.
Yeah, for sure.
But Ian, like he'd set things on fire and he's that guy. He's that good. And so I can entertain them with some stories while I'm juggling. Now let's go do this. And then, so like what's something for you that would be considered at some level entertainment? Or we went with the best practice within teaching of like, What's some of your best hooks at the start of a class?
Well, aside from, hey, you want to hear about the time Mr. Parrish punched someone in the face? I use a human knot. Every semester we'll use a human knot, and we'll use it multiple times throughout the semester. You know, students stand in a circle in even numbers. Take your right hand and join it to the right hand of someone across the circle from you. Now take your left hand and join it with a different person's hand. And we'll do this in several ways. I'll start out in complete silence. You're not allowed to speak. And you got to untie this knot without breaking your grip, okay? And the higher number of students you get in a group, the harder it gets. But we'll do it in a couple different ways. Sometimes I'll say, all right, now everybody's allowed to talk. And I'll listen to, just 6 people just talking over each other, man. And sometimes it'll happen naturally, but sometimes I have to lead them to a place of where, hey, figure out somebody who's kind of getting it and let that person talk. And everybody else kind of stay quiet. And unless you have something to add that's helpful, just let that person talk. And that's the best way. You figure out somebody that's kind of got a knack for it, and everybody else shuts up and just does what they ask. And things start to move then in that circle.
It's a pretty good life lesson. So,
resisting all of the natural things, because we're going to be handcuffing, we're going to be doing traffic stops, we're going to break out some fingerprint powder. We're resisting all of that natural stuff that happens in my class. That's one thing that we do that we don't have to do, but it's entertaining and it teaches the kind of lessons that I want to teach, which are all about communication. I couldn't teach a class because I'm an expert on it. I could teach a class because it's so interesting to me. It's just communication in all facets.
You're also giving your kids opportunities to make like TikTok videos.
Yeah, we use TikTok.
That's straight they're creating the entertainment.
Yeah, we use that as an assessment. I mean,
yeah,
we use that. It'll have a rubric just like an essay would. So
we're peeling off the layers because, words they're very layered. And so what did Walt Disney mean by that? What does Taylor Sheridan mean when he, takes on those 3? What does Tom Hanks mean when he takes on those 3 words? What does that mean for us as I teach history, but I teach every semester my kids how to play chess. I introduce the military that way, but I also introduce character education that way.
Yeah.
Concepts of humility and the king, and a queen sacrifice and courage, and the pawn and patience. And, entertainment. Okay. I think we've connected that.
I want to pull this up real quick because I don't want to missay it. We don't have to spend a whole lot of time on that middle word, but we can if you want. So just let me pull up this quote, and I want to just see what you have to say about it. Now, the best research I can do, there's a version of this quote that is credited to Aristotle, but several sources that I've found have said that this is a misquote to Aristotle. So what I've done is I've pulled the quote and what Aristotle actually said, and I'm just going to read it out, and then we'll talk about it. So Lowell Benyon, in 1959, in the book Religion and the Pursuit of Truth, said, "It is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it or rejecting it, one might add." Now, Benyon credited that to Aristotle. Okay? I'm going to read it one more time. It is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. Now, what Aristotle actually said is this: it is the mark of an educated man to look for precision in each class of things, just so far as the nature of the subject admits. It is evidently equally foolish to accept probable reasoning from a mathematician and to demand from a rhetorician scientific proofs. Mark of an educated man to look for precision in each class of things just so far as the nature of the subject admits. It's evidently equally foolish to accept probable reasoning from a mathematician and to demand from a rhetorician scientific proofs. So as we navigate into that educate word, Let me just ask you, in your words, what do we do there? How do you define that? How do you, if educating is a verb for you, now we've already heard you say, what was it? Inspire,
Instruct, empower.
Inspire, instruct, empower. Is there more to it than anything you want to add to it beyond that?
I mean, I think it's still a very layered word as well. I mean, you had two, brilliant minds across millennia share a thought. But I mean, think about what educating, let's go there, because you said that.
Yeah.
It's got an ing on it. That anything that starts with re pops off the page for me. Anything ending in ing pops off the page for me. I mean, those are two monster concepts that I live by, I live through, and I try to share.
Yeah.
Because re is hey, let's do it again, and ing means we're in the middle of this. We haven't figured anything out. Now let me pause. We have figured some things out. We're on the journey. We're on the path. We're making progress. Let's keep going. ing, right? You follow me?
Mm-hmm.
We may need to repeat some things. There may need to be some repetition, some return, some reconciliation. But I think, instructing is, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to have you read something from somebody else. Hey, watch this. But that instruction also takes us in, okay, I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to have you watch something. I'm going to have you listen to something. I'm going to have you read something. But now volley one of your own thoughts from what you're processing. So that begins a discussion.
Yeah.
The next level of instructing people and educating people is facilitating. I love that word. I consider myself a facilitator. I'd take more pride in that than just a more generic educator, but a facilitator. Now I'm going to encourage you to debate that idea, which comes back to I can hold on to an idea and not have to accept it, but because I have an educated mind, I can entertain this thought. You just brought something in the room I've never even heard of. Okay, what? Tell me more.
Yeah.
And what you're going to really want from me in relationship is my thoughts on that as an educated person,
mm-hmm.
to add something to that that's meaningful, or at least I can take away and contemplate myself.
Mm-hmm.
But there is this interaction, a legitimate, hey, that's clever. That's witty. That's good. That's deep. Let's see if I can match that. Let's see if I can go that deep as well, and just throw something out there. And I think if we're educating ourselves and we're educating other people and we're in this learning environment, and it's a shared environment, then there has to be that volley. Now, we'll need to model that as the educator. We'll need to facilitate that, like I said. We'll need to provide that safety net for, that's not debate, that's arguing. That's not debate, that's just you being louder and shutting people up, declaring victory because your volume was that high,
mm-hmm.
and your persona was that strong. No, that's not winning a debate. True debates, I love telling this story. I used to judge some debates locally for the homeschool kids.
Mm-hmm.
They'd have regional tournaments, and I'd go and I'd be a judge. And it was amazing how, in a debate, you prepare both sides. You do deep dives for both sides because you don't know what you're going to be assigned for the debate. Which side?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if you agree or disagree. If that's your right and that's your wrong, well, you still in this competition, in this educated environment that has been created with intentionality. Let's see what you can do with this intellectually. And I think that's one of the greatest ways to see, the most humblest stance that you can take to this life of being able to acquire something. And then you get something else. It doesn't match up. But then you discover paradox is a real thing. You can hold two truths at the same time that are polar opposites. Yeah. And usually only your life experience can tell you that both of these things are true. Because, our younger selves have been told things, and then our experience goes, whoa, wait a minute. And it doesn't necessarily shift everything from what we thought. It just adds something to what we now know. And I mean, I've probably veered off a little bit here, but I'm going through this whole entire thing because the instruct gets us to the empower, which means, hey, you that's been in this learning environment that accepted my invitation, not necessarily my challenge, to enter into this. Now, independently, hey, present something, right? Perform something.
Sure.
Let's compete at something. Or hey, how about you go teach something? And for me, that's empowerment. And I jumped ahead on you. I apologize for that. But that's the stuff that, like, we're bridge builders. I believe in that. We're bridging the beginning of the semester to the end of the semester. And for so many of the kids that we hang out with, I mean, that leads pretty close to that threshold of adulthood.
Yeah.
Like, graduation isn't automatic. We've talked about initiation and things like that, but there is that threshold of your choices now mean a little bit more than they ever have before. And for some of our kids, they really are going to be on their own.
Yeah.
And so what we're talking about is a whole entire process of learning that, man, they can catch a glimpse in our experience that they could take for them, or take something with them to the very near future. And I mean, like, that's what I desire to be a part of, respectfully, to 16 and 17-year-olds. I want to engage that way.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
That was a lot.
Yeah, for sure. You know me by now. You know I'm a guy that I like to take a seemingly layered or difficult or maybe deep conversation and really simplify it. And you know also about me, sometimes I'll say something that sounds really simple and I mean a lot more to it. And that's the moment we're in. So I want to pull you to this place. And I asked you to put your teacher hat on earlier, and you've already put it on, but I'm going to ask you to metaphorically put your teacher of teachers hat on and live there for just a minute. And I want to sort of draw you a picture of where my mind is. When we talk about the word educate, especially educate as a verb, something I do, the vision I have in my mind is when a student joins me for a semester, in that criminal justice context, I'm at one place and they are at another. Okay. Now you've already mentioned, and I totally agree that there are places in their lives that they're further down the trail than I am. And I want them to bring me along. And, collaboration is a big deal in the grand scheme of that. But let's go with the illustration that I'm in one place, or there's a mark, whether it's me or not. Hopefully it's beyond me, but let's say there's a mark and there's the place that they are day one of the semester. To educate them as a verb, I want to bring them as close to me or to that mark as I can get them, or beyond it, because there's obviously every classroom I walk in, there's some brain living in that classroom that's probably more brilliant than I'll ever be. And I want to leave that open for them to excel. Now, the in-between of those two things is where it's really layered, and it sounds like I'm drawing this simple illustration, but there's this really, and you just gave a lot of the, I feel like you fit a teaching semester into just a couple minute speech there just a second ago. So, you're a trained teacher. Like, that's what you went to college to do. Yeah. I mean, you're a trained teacher at a pretty high level, including the, 23 years?
Yeah.
Because I know that in any regard, you're going to improve in the field probably more than you did in the university. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I just add a little side note here?
Yes,
that even to the very last semester of working on my master's, maybe I'll be a preacher.
Yeah.
So when you say trained teacher, but maybe I'll be a preacher. Now, obviously, there's some, very strong parallels there because,
I was about to say, isn't that the same thing?
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
No, not if Not if preaching is you're on an elevated stage and it's just sit and get every single time.
Is this a future episode, Paul? Because I feel it's a future episode.
Because teaching is in the trenches.
Because you know that question was loaded, didn't you?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I did not train to be a teacher until I was a teacher. Does that strike you odd?
No. Because, I mean,
yeah, come from the field.
You're not the first. Sure.
Come from the field. Hey, we want people from the field teaching. So come and
I
teach.
cheer for guys like you.
Yeah. I trained, like an 18-month program to bridge to a teacher's license. So I said that to say you're the expert here. Now, the in-between of the illustration that I'm talking about is all the, I don't want to call it messy. I don't want to call it muddy.
No, call it both of those and call it miraculous and call it mysterious and call it magnificent.
There you go.
Yeah, that's where the tension is. It's where the juice is, man. It is okay, so you cast a vision for yourself. You're in this moment. You see what could be. And then you have to navigate that middle. Yeah, that's where bonds are formed. That's where genuine, authentic relationships are formed.
Yeah.
That's where you discover who you are. We discover who we are. We discover who who we aren't, who I'm not. And in those discoveries, we make our next choice. We point in the next, are we still heading in this direction? Yeah. Are we gonna take a turn? But that's it right there. There's too many guys. Parker Palmer is a big deal in my life. He's a teacher, and I'm reading another book by his that I just discovered at the used bookstore, and I'm super excited about. He talks about the hidden wholeness of like being who we are everywhere we go. Mm-hmm. Like I'm not a teacher and a husband and a guy who will walk 10 miles just because he wants to walk 10 miles. Mm-hmm. Call that a hobby. I don't know what I call that. I'm a walker, right? We are who we are everywhere we go. How do we read the room, discern the moment, and bring our whole selves to that experience? And so for teaching, you can close your door. You've created your own kingdom. You can be left alone and you can run it however you want to. You can be the boss. You can be the king or queen. You can be the dictator. You can be the comedian. Yeah. You can be the straight entertainer.
Sure.
You can be cool. You can be mean. You can be a bully. You can be a healer, right? But Henry Nouwen is another guy that means a lot to me, and he talks about being, especially those of us. This is a life of service. Mm-hmm. He talks about being the wounded healer. So we bring all of ourself in there. Now, not all of us, like a Stacey Wilford, can do a therapeutic Thursday. Yeah. I don't know if that's going to fit in your criminal justice class, but she makes it fit in her literature classes of like, we are studying the human heart, the human mind, human connections, dynamics, relationships, and heartbreak. We're going to make it personal. She does that. And so, I teach history with a sociologist's heart. And so I want us to be aware of group dynamics. And so that's going to be part of this as well. I'm going to pull myself back here because I've told you,
well, just help me finish this illustration. The stuff in between the 2 points, which I've drawn out in my illustration.
The whole point of waking up. Yes.
I'm gonna put some actual. I don't know. Sometimes I accidentally speak in metaphors, and sometimes I do it a lot. I push. I pull. I invite, and I challenge, and I wrestle, and I try to force. Give me some more. What are some of those things you're doing to help move that line?
That I would push back on your challenge. I would push back on your wrestle. We could camp out there and we can make that sense, but
you see, I'm not doing that for each individual. I'm trying to speak to a diverse room.
Sure. But I think the power of the invitation is more powerful than the challenge.
To everyone, to every single person in the room.
I believe the power of the invitation is the seed of the gospel. And I am who I am everywhere that I go.
Mhm.
It's not the gospel. This good news isn't a challenge. It's an invitation. And so when we're speaking to individuals and we're speaking to a group, which is what makes our job so hard.
Okay, so let's say I'm a student who, and you're gonna push me on this, but these students exist. They're at Walker Valley. All of their friends have said, "Man, you got to go do the Salisville experience. Like it's different." They look up to you. Maybe they've heard an episode of Downright Mindful, and they just think, "Man, I want to listen to that guy talk." And they come into that room with so much respect for this former baller who's now coaching in a hard situation, and he's a teacher when he wakes up in the morning and a teacher in his heart when he goes to bed at night. And you give an invitation. What if I'm that student and that invitation is a challenge because of what you mean to me?
Okay, you're still talking in really vague generalities. What did I just say to you? How have you responded? What's been the first impression? Like, I just had a girl walk out of my room in December, very last day, and go, "You have been my favorite teacher this semester." And that young lady was really hard almost every single day. She gave no glimpse whatsoever that I was her favorite teacher. That tension that you just described was there every single day. Every day. But I showed up every day, and every day was a brand new day. Now, this is Paul 6.0, as we talk about it in my language, kind of in marriage and personal development, but it's also Paul 23 years into this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Paul, man, has a really hard time in year 2, 3, 4, making every day a brand new day, but like every single day. And there's a fistful this semester of like that very last day, that very last week, there was the, "Hey, thank you. Hey, appreciate you. Hey,"
Mm-hmm.
And there were still some that, you get none of that the whole entire semester.
Yeah.
But you keep showing up. So, that's what I would say of like, I'm not trying to get a kid's full attention every single day. It's an unrealistic expectation. But I am trying to grab every kid's attention every week in some meaningful sort of way where I can follow up with them and go, "Hey, yesterday, that was you, wasn't it?" But I have to discover who they are and what they're interested in. And that's not a challenge. That's an invitation. "Hey, will you share with me? Are you an artist? Are you a dancer? You a singer? You a gamer? You a hunter? You a fisher? You a Lego builder? Are you a talker? Are you a thinker? Are you, who are you?" And then for me, are you a Booker T. Washington? Are you a Jane Addams? Are you a Fred Hampton? Are you a Malcolm Gladwell? Are you a Babe Ruth? Are you that's what I'm trying to do. And this is my invitation to folks of go, "Hey, consider this." Mm-hmm. That's the inspiration part. I bring the instruction part, which is more than just the content. It's the concepts that I bring into class. The 1 + 1 = 3 kind of stuff. The layers of patriotism. It's the thematic, the generational way that we try to discover things within my class.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the end, if I'm going to fight you for anything right now, it's not the challenge. It's the invitation. It's the slow roll of impacting people by going, "I see you. I'm sticking. I'm staying. And I'm going to keep being as creative as I possibly can to compassionately show you there is more to whatever limitations that you see. There's more to you. There's more to me. There's more to this learning environment. There's more to this experience here at Walker Valley." And I'm just repeating myself, but like, that is an invitation.
Mm-hmm.
Tone matters. Tone can take an invitation to a challenge, and then now you've lost some folks. Do we need challenges? You could, if you hammered away for a while, I would probably shrug my shoulders and go, "Okay, yeah, I get what you're saying. That challenge, sure, accept it."
Yeah.
But it's getting awfully close to a conversation you and I have had about a competition doesn't vibe with the gospel message.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't. Now, can we learn some things? Yes. Can we become aware of some things? Yes. Can we do some really special things together in competition? Yes. But there's just more. I think that a totally different direction again.
No, I think you're good.
But
That's
this
what I wanted
is
to hear.
This is at the centerpiece of, man, what I've become and who I want to be. And when you said put your teacher of teachers hat on, yes. Now you got me in a space of I'm with people who have chosen this profession, who have chosen a life of service, who have chosen something really hard. Like there's no easy days in teaching.
Mm-hmm.
I'll fight over that. Someone tells me there's an easy day. No, because first block ain't second block, which ain't third block. Like no, they're not. First block went well. Second block didn't go as well. And third block was awesome. Like that's our day.
Yeah.
First block was terrible for whatever reason. Second block was, third block was awesome.
Yeah.
And then tomorrow, third block is terrible for whatever reason, whether it's that one personality or whether that just fell flat or whether I tried to make a change from first block to third block and it didn't go well. But like now I'm speaking to those folks of inspire, instruct, empower, entertain, educate.
Enlighten.
And yeah, I mean, I do love that word.
Well, here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do too. I think we've referenced where my mind goes before. You know, I've told you that in its simplest form, if I can get a kid in 3 semesters with me to begin to ask the right questions, I feel like I've done something. And that those questions come from somewhere, and typically they come from a certain level of understanding in a certain, topic or context. And that's my end game. Now, along the way, those people developed some knowledge they didn't have before that caused them to ask better questions. And that's where the whole thing is hidden in the simplicity of what I say is teach you to ask the right questions. Well, if someone's going to ask the right questions about a criminal case, they need to know a little bit about crime and a little bit about the elements of what makes you understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
They come in the door asking those questions we were talking about off the air a minute ago. Hey, what's the worst thing that ever happened to you as a police officer? They ask those questions, that's not a bad question the way I worded that. The ones who say, hey, have you ever shot somebody? That's the come on, man. Give me a better question. I'll talk about this all day, but give me a better question. And the more knowledge they can gain in that genre, in that field, the better questions they can ask. But I always want to keep them asking questions. And because, I mentioned on our last episode, I believe the beginning of wisdom is knowing what you don't know. The more you know, the more you see that you have access to and that you need to know. And there the questions come.
So let's stay in the context of criminal justice because that's way more specific. I'm telling in a history class, I mean, all of it. I have 90 days to do all of it, right? Criminal justice is something very specific.
It's not very specific, but it's more specific than U.S. history.
Yeah, that's all I'm going with.
Yes, I take your point.
Oh, my word.
Because math is specific.
No, Lord.
Math is numbers.
1 + 1 = 3. Where's Jordan Wilcutt when we need him? Okay,
No.
Now, be specific. Okay, so in your class, as a criminal justice teacher, what do you want in your room when you talk about the middle, when you talk about the tension? Heat or light?
Explain that a little bit better.
Okay. Heat. Fire in the belly. For kids to find their convictions. Light. Where they just discover something. I mean, heat or light, like on a daily, on a weekly, on a unit, like, are you trying to bring heat in the room to where like they have to get engaged, they have to find their voice, they have to pick a side, they have to, or are you just trying to illuminate the room in the way that, hey, I've never seen that before because you just cast a light on that. That ends with a period of like, never even considered that before. The with an exclamation mark of like, wow, if I really sat with that, that could change my life. Or the, where like they really are, you just alluded to it, like you want them asking legit questions.
Yeah.
Like, are you bringing heat into a criminal justice room? Are you bringing light?
I won't say that I'm bringing heat intentionally, but I will tell you some of my favorite moments is when those kids, they learn that I can come in and secure your house based on facts without a search warrant. I want them to get to that point where they go, no, you can't. No, you cannot. I love those moments because now I'm about to teach you something.
Mm-hmm.
I love those moments when, we're talking about the Fourth Amendment again. It's always about the Fourth Amendment, man, because all they got to do is open up TikTok and they'll see some guy on there that with a headline that reads something like "Officer fired after," and every time you watch the video, nothing bad happens. Somebody just got told something they didn't know or they didn't like it when they heard it. But yeah, those kids can get to that pretty easily. I don't do that intentionally. Are you saying that I should be doing that intentionally?
I'm asking. Because there's been a movement, within Tennessee where, hey, you're history teachers. We're going to limit some things. And the way the law has been written, it was never specific, but it was generalized to get all of our attention of, okay, so how are we going to navigate that? And so in English classes as well, but in history classes specifically, of like, it is written in the standards that I have to talk about lynching. Like, how do you do that without bringing tension in the room? Mm-hmm. How do you bring that into the room without, hearing Billie Holiday sing Strange Fruit? How do you do that without looking at those stanzas and going, hey, there is this beautiful portrait being portrayed of the gallant South, but there's blood at the roots. Where are we going with this? We went from slavery to Reconstruction to segregation for decades. We had presidents that allowed that to stay in place, that didn't fight it from the federal standpoint and allowed 11 states to keep it in place. Yeah. It wasn't until Kennedy and then LBJ that goes, all right, the federal government is literally going to do something about this. Because Teddy Roosevelt didn't, and Woodrow Wilson didn't, and Calvin Coolidge didn't, and Harry Truman went, oh, okay, well, at least in the military, we're gonna change some things. No more segregation in the military. And this is a start. Mm-hmm. And so it's just, you start looking at these things, and that brings me back to Frederick Douglass. This is kind of relates to what we're talking about, light or fire. And he said fire. I don't want to just illuminate the room. I don't want you just to consider something. I'm going to bring the fire in my belly into this space, and I'm going to try to light a fire underneath your tail and get you to change, because there are things that need to change. Now, you have criminal justice kids. Some of them want to be lawyers. They better get used to some heat, right? Mm-hmm. Because as a lawyer, you're not just illuminating. No, you're bringing heat, right? Yeah. And so it is context. That's why, and what you and I are talking about right now, criminal justice it's a smaller target.
Sure.
But you can argue that all day long. I love it that you push back immediately. Oh, that's so huge. Whatever. No, but it is. I believe you. Yeah. I believe you. I do. Yeah. It's an onion. I believe you. Layer after layer after layer after layer. But it's like you have some really unique opportunities, as do I. This goes all the way back to what I was mentioning of so am I still going to bring tension in my room? Am I still going to bring because as a sociologist, when you're studying, it's just sociologists don't just observe. Mm-hmm. So the best ones, the ones who we still tell their stories and their research, they jumped right in the middle of a group. They just did. And then they were like, hey, everybody, look at this. And then they went and jumped in another group and in another group. And they just continued to tell those narratives so that people would go, huh, or huh? And we have to have those moments of tension, of light and fire. Yeah. So, I did that thing again where I asked an or, and it's really an and, because how much of life is and. So we as teachers, we discern, okay, so what does it mean today to educate? Is it to bring some heat in the room? Is it to bring some light in the room? But I don't know. This is just me off the cuff right here, but Are there days where is there a third option in what we do? Because I believe in education, there has to be some tension for growth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I mean, we only get them for 90 days. We're high school, block teachers. It's not a long time. And if you've got them all year long for 180 days, I mean, you only got them for like 50 minutes at a time.
Well, sometimes I get them for 270. There's another difference.
That's awesome.
That's another difference. And
yeah, my journalism classes were like that. I get what you're saying.
I mean, you get them for a majority of I won't say a majority, but at least half their high school, close to half.
That's
of
cool.
it, which is that's pretty cool. And when you talk about you're building relationships and this and that, that's a big deal.
Parker and Lexi were with me for 6 semesters in a row.
Yeah, that's
they're an exception.
Yeah,
and exceptional.
Feels like you work at a different place when those kids graduate, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it feels a little different. I mean, that's
for
like
sure.
it's like a coworker leaving almost.
Yeah, kind of.
Isn't it?
Because I mean, by the time they got to, semester 3, semester 4, I mean, like, what do y'all want to give yourselves to?
Yeah.
And they wanted to create magazines, and they created some really cool stuff.
Yeah. Do they start participating in your process? Sort of, is there some trickle down of what you're delivering to like lower level students through those people, or no?
Well, that empowerment part.
Yeah.
Pursue your interests. I mean, that's a concept in my class as well.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're with me for 90 days or you're with me for 6 semesters, pursue your interests. And you know what? I mean, we get kids that are like, well, I don't know. Okay, well, I'll just sit with you until you figure out what you're interested in, because only you know that.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
Yeah.
And as soon as I say those words, well, I'll sit with you till you figure it out. That created tension.
Yeah.
He is going to wait for me to articulate what I'm interested in. And then as soon as I say Fortnite, well, then a guy like me is going to be like, all right, how can we're doing major industrial cities. How can you create a project connected to Fortnite with major industrial cities? I mean, like that's where we go with this. What are you interested in? Oh, you love working on engines, huh? Your grandpa's been letting you drive on the family farm since you were 11. Huh. You get it, don't you? Okay. All right. We're studying industrialization right now. Okay. Engines, industrialization. Okay. Let's find a connect.
Yeah.
Let's get your hands on something.
Yeah.
I mean, you really get into this. Hey, bring that in class, work on it on the weekends. And now this is how I collaborate with kids. And this is how we make memories. And this is how they create artifacts that stay in our, museum in my classroom,
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I mean by that's the end game.
Yeah.
That's the end game.
Could you talk about this for a long time?
Yes.
I could too. At 56 minutes, I think we need to press pause, don't you?
Sure.
All right. This is one that we'll definitely trip over again, or some version of this conversation, isn't it?
Where'd this idea come from today? What were you thinking about? What were you reading? What were you listening? What were you writing? What were you recording that got you to here?
Probably, I mentioned earlier I credited Taylor Sheridan with bringing up the 3 E's to me, and that so the other day it caused me to dig a little bit to like who said that? Who put those 3 words together? And I don't know. Fast forward a few minutes and it's in my notes in my phone, and as I'm searching something else, I'm trying to figure out, what do people say education is? And I find an Aristotle quote, and I also find several sources saying that Aristotle didn't say it like that, but okay, we see where you're getting. And that's it, man. I just knew that I could throw those words out there and probably get some conversation out of it.
Well, you're, Dale Carnegie.
Yeah.
We were just talking about that fella again. You were showing me the book off your bookshelf. You've told that story before. But for me, I grew up in a house with Zig Ziglar.
Mm-hmm.
And he would throw out lists of words and books like Over the Top. And he would be like, which one resonates with you? And I remember doing this as
Over the Top. Is that the one with Sylvester Stallone? And he?
Oh, my word.
No, it's not it.
Yes. And Zig Ziglar's book, Over the Top, where my dad is reading it so he can be a better salesman. And I'm reading it so I can be a better high school basketball player.
Oh, yeah.
But remember, at the same time, I mean, I'm writing sermons. I'm not preaching them. I'm pinning them up on a cork board in my room. I mean, it's just who I am at 15, 16, 17 years old.
You still have them?
Some buried somewhere in a box. Sure.
You gonna scan those things into a hard drive one day for your great grandkids to pull up on the cloud?
I've got other people speaking in my life of like, hey, unclutter, because our physical clutter may be connected to our emotional, intellectual, and spiritual clutter. So I'm throwing some things away, man. So you saying that all you're doing is tempting me to go, oh, maybe I should go get that out of the box, out of the trash can, out of the dumpster.
That's a thought that's fresh on my mind. My mom made a Facebook post today or yesterday, and it was a like a basket full of letters. Now, I knew these things existed, but she told the story along with it. She had three small kids at home, and I think she was working first shift and my dad was working second shift. She'd go to work before he would go to work before she would get home. So oftentimes the kids were left with like their younger brother, who was probably a late teenager at the time. They didn't see each other. You know, they'd go all week and wouldn't see each other. So they would write letters and leave them. And there's just this box full of letters. And I thought, man, she ought to scan those things in. And I don't know if I even want to read them right now, but one day I will, you know.
Yeah. No, I get it. I mean,
that's a treasure.
I ain't throwing Granny Ellie's, letters to me in college away. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But maybe I can get rid of a birthday card.
Yeah.
That says happy birthday 2012. I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
One day Seth Salzville III is going to be rumbling through some stuff of his great grandfathers, and he's going to find
whatever. He's going to be listening to podcasts. He's going to be listening to this right here.
No, I think.
Hey, Seth.
Yeah, downright
Seth the third.
Yeah. Hey,
what's up, buddy?
Yeah. All right, man. Well, good deal. Hey, for those of you that are still with us, you're a true fan. We appreciate you getting through all this mind mess with us. And this is what we talk about. This is what we do. And we just pressed record for you today, as we originally started doing, and we're still doing, man. We will have some guests eventually when we get sick enough of talking to each other. I guess, Paul, we'll probably bring a guest or two on, maybe sooner than later. But as always, feel free to comment, join in the conversation. Let us know what you want to hear more of. Share this with a friend, and we appreciate you. Any last words, Paul?
You just threw me under the bus. Like I was supposed to bring someone in, and you just talked about who you were planning on bringing in.
Well, that's not.
You already have a plan.
I'm not going to drop that yet.
Matt has a plan. I'm not going to name any names right now, but by golly, you're acting like I should be thinking about this, and you already have made the plan. Thanks.
Keep listening, y'all. We've got some new voices coming for you. So, anyways, thanks for listening. Man, that's downright mindful. You've been listening to Downright Mindful with your hosts, Matt Paris and Paul Salzville. Produced by Josh Morris. Intro and outro production by Derek Kinsey. You can find us wherever fine podcasts are downloaded. Thanks for listening.